So hi folks, it's Karen here from Online Perfume School, and today I am here with Liz from Parfums Clandestins. Is that how you pronounce it, Liz? I never know.
Almost. Yeah, Parfums Clandestins.
Clandestin.
Yeah, I
Yeah, my
haven't quite
French
got the
accent,
French
as you can
accent.
see, is sorely lacking. So just to give you guys a bit of a context, those of you who are watching this, I really want to, I've sort of wanted for ages to start featuring some of my students inside my online perfume course, my 14-week course. And so Liz has really kindly agreed to come on and do an interview and tell us a little bit more about her journey of learning perfumery, and also a little bit about her background and her brand as well. So welcome, Liz. So firstly, let's get started with, could you just do a little bit of an intro just to tell the people that are viewing, you know, just a little bit about you and kind of the brand that you're starting now. And then, yeah, we can just have a little bit of a chat as we go on.
Thanks, Karen. It's a pleasure to be here, actually, and talk about the wonderful perfume course you're doing and my own path on it. I live in Malta with my husband and late teen son, and this is my study, and my doubles as my perfume lab as well. My trials are on the back there. My background is, you know, throughout my career really has been communications and journalism, and increasingly sort of web and websites, things like that. So I've been a knowledge worker. So I think that starting a perfumery brand is putting me out of my comfort zone, but it's a wonderful creative challenge to set myself as well. Because it's the first time I'm really going down the route of trying to create a product and getting it to a retail stage. So in a nutshell, that's the sort of, you know, the background to where I am.
Yeah, so with your, can you tell us a little bit? So if people are looking for your social media, your brand out there, I'll share some links at the end anyway. But you know, so you haven't launched yet, but you are looking at launching. When have you got a timeline on your launch date?
I know it tends to creep, actually, the timeline. I think, what are we in now? We're in March, beginning of March, and I think I'm looking at sort of October, November. I definitely want to get out before Christmas. I think that is.
People can find you on your Instagram, right?
Yeah. I've got all, because my background's communications. Yeah, I've got all the you know, all the website, Twitter handles. So it's basically parfumclandestin.com, and then the little @ sign on most of that, the same name anyway. So
perfect. And we'll talk a little bit more about your brand and your vision for it in a second. But you know, so you started in a creative industry, really. So web design and writing. So do you do graphic design as well, or?
No, but increasingly you end up teaching yourself quite a bit of that. Yeah, my background really was solid journalism and content creation. So I'm pretty much like you, Karen. I'm a words person. I love words. But increasingly, as you run your own websites, you sort of dig into the back of them, and you end up having to do stuff because you can't hire people all the time. So I got quite techie and nerdy. So for the last 10 years, I've probably been doing quite a lot of the back end of websites, which is really helpful when you want to get your own brand out there. You know, I didn't really have to call on anybody else. So that saved me a bit of cash doing that, I have to be honest.
Yeah, and actually it's quite interesting, the parallels between, so you've got like the creativity with your sort of, you know, your storytelling skills and your writing with your journalism, but then there's like the techie back bit of putting it all together. And I can sort of see quite a good analogy for perfume in that as well, because, you know, it probably, have you found that has helped you?
Yeah, you do have to toggle between the two, because part of it is pure creativity, and that's what drew me to perfumery in particular, because I have trained in organic skincare formulation, and I was thinking about bringing out a skincare brand. And then I realized when I got to the bit of adding the fragrance element, and I'd done your short masterclass on fragrance in skincare products. And it was at that point that I realized that I really loved the creative freedom of the fragrance, because skincare very often is, you know, trying to solve a problem, you know, puffy eyes, hyperpigmentation, rosacea, you know, all of the things. And there didn't seem to be something, it it didn't inspire me in the way that fragrance did, because that is pure creativity. You can take inspiration from literature or from, you know, outside your door, or amazing holiday you had, or, you know, the inspiration for perfume can come from anywhere, and it's really, really personal and creative. So I think that's why I was more drawn to it in the end than but you're right. You know, there's the drafting the formulae, there's the, you know, the sort of exactness of measuring and tweaking things. And so that's the sort of techie bit. You're right. There is that you have the sort of vision of the creativity where you want to go, but then you have to kind of work out, is it 0.001 of a gram at this at 1% dilution? Which is with something like cumin, for instance, which I overdosed horrendously in one, because I thought I really want a bit of cumin, because that grows outside my door here in Malta. So I wanted to bring, you know, some of the local plants and herbs into the perfumery, and I made horrendous mistake with the cumin. So then you have to get the techie side on board and learn, you know, the formula that no, it's got to go down to 1% dilution and be very, very
exactly. So it's this kind of fine balance of creative and a little bit of the kind of nerdy lab stuff and the sort of techie bit. This balance. So when you so remind me, like, where did you start? So you trained as in skincare formulation, because actually that's where I started as well, funnily enough. And then I went into perfumery. So I do remember you came to one of my one-day workshops in London, didn't you? Did you come to Les Senteurs?
I did. That was
a really long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not that long, because then I'll realise how long I've been at it. That was 2.5 years.
It feels like a lifetime away for me.
Yeah, it does, because you see so many faces in the classes. That was January 16.
Yes,
and January 16, and I was still, you know, doing the skincare idea at that point. And then it was the tail end of that year, December 17, that I joined that's when the turning point came, and I realized that I didn't want to do the skincare, I wanted just to do the fragrance. And so then I joined your online. So that was December 17.
Yeah, so had you done any, so before you joined the online, had you done any fragrance blending before, or had you sort of just done a little bit of essential oils for skincare products, or had you sort of dabbled in making a perfume?
I hadn't actually dabbled in making a full perfume. Like before I did your one day, I mean, I had your book, I had your book, so I sort of vaguely knew the theory of how the structure should go together, but I hadn't trialed it out myself until that one day course. And then later on throughout the online, you know, having a go and putting the sort of modules together and working through. But I had no idea, you know, there was sort of water in perfume, or, you know, what percentage that should be, and that things need to be filtered and maybe, you know, chilled, and all of those other bits at the tail end. I mean, from the skincare formulation, you literally put so little of an essential oil in, because many of these things are facial application. So you don't have the leeway to put many oils, because they'll go over the, you know, the skincare leave-on limits. So that's when I realized that perfumery could release me to put a whole whack more into something. And
exactly, Fabulous. Yeah, so you do get a lot more creativity with that, because also, you know, and I'm sure you found this when you're creating for skincare products, the actual, you have to simplify it, because the sort of detail of the little nuances can get completely lost in a cream or a lotion or a shower gel base. So making a fragrance in alcohol for like a spray, you've got so much more like fine detail you can add. Brilliant. So what was the inspiration behind your fragrance line? The fragrances that you're working on at the moment, what was your inspiration?
The first fragrances. I mean, the name of the brand, I sweated blood trying to find something that hadn't been taken that would mean something. So the brand name, actually, my husband came up with, just walked into my office and said, how about this? And I kind of like the name, clandestine it is in English, isn't it? Because I'm hoping to work with all naturals in my range. And as we know, naturals, don't necessarily have that silage. They don't have the opportunity to do what more commercial fragrances with some aroma chemicals can do, synthetics. They have to hug closer to you. So I'm trying to weave into the actual brand story the idea that these are more personal scents. They're not going to leave a whole vapor trail behind you. And there's something that can excite you personally and those very close to you. So the clandestine thing is sort of woven into the brand story there. And the actual story behind I've scoped out, I haven't necessarily got over there trialed up, 4 scents that I'd like to launch in sequence. And the inspiration for those is really the neighbouring island to me, Sicily, and a novel that was written. It was written in the 20th century, but it's based on in the late 1800s. And I don't know, somebody might have seen the film with Burt Lancaster years ago. It's called The Leopard in English, Il Gattopardo in Italian. And it's a really opulent story about a Sicilian noble family at the decline of nobility, really, when Garibaldi arrived. So I read this book at university. I studied Italian and other languages at university, and that book just stuck in my mind all the way through. And then I ended up living in this part of the world. And I remember writing an essay about the allegories of scent, because there's a lot of descriptive passages in that book. And they're allegories about the political situation that's happening in Sicily at that time. And they're beautiful passages, you know, and so redolent of the plants that we have in this part of the world, in the Mediterranean. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to do 4 perfumes based on that sort of history, literature, you know, herbs and flora, really, that are around me now.
That sounds wonderful. And I think having a brand and a collection built around something that's so rich with story really helps to draw the customer in, whether they're kind of viewing your website, whether they're smelling your fragrances, something that's got that rich kind of literature behind it, I think is really wonderful idea. And actually, when you're talking about Italy, and you know, we often think of the fragrance, the origins of the perfumery industry being in grass, but actually that was just sort of, you know, there was a lot going on in Italy at that time as well, and it was just complete sort of fluke that, you know, it was just over the border that had all the factories and the tanneries. But it was Italy has got such a rich perfume heritage as well. So I think that ties in really nicely, and I can't wait to smell your fragrances. Actually,
no, that's the operative word, isn't it? Wait, yeah.
Okay, so let's look at where you were when you first started. So as you've gone on your journey, what have you found? Has there been any sort of main things that you found that were challenges? What were your main challenges? Yeah, maybe let's share those, because I think a lot of people have very similar challenges.
Yeah, I think there are quite a few, actually. I think the first thing you have to learn is patience. You know, I can sort of sit down for a Sunday afternoon and whip up 3 varieties, 3 modifications of a scent. And then, of course, they're not going to smell anything like they will do in 6 to 8 weeks or even 3 months. So I think, you know, you kind of rush through. You can burn through quite a lot of materials thinking, well, this didn't smell right, you know, and chuck it or whatever, or just leave it by the side and whir on thinking you haven't got a formula right, when in fact it might be, but you just haven't given it the time. So I think the whole modus operandi of getting your raw materials in, diluting them to a workable concentrate, you know, 10 or 2, and not, you know, and then they're going to smell of alcohol for a while. You've got to be patient. So I think, you know, you're raring to go, but you do have to understand that will be the process when you finally get to your finished scent that you want to put out there, perhaps retail-wise. You've got to factor in these stages in production. And don't get panicked, you know, it doesn't smell right to begin with, because it might well do in 6 weeks. And, you know, you've just got to learn that, really. That's one of the
so that's great. That is a great tip for everyone, to just have patience, because I do see people getting really kind of stressed that, I'm not going to get it, it's not working out. And it's like, sometimes you just have to really kind of like slow down and just go through the process, you know, process of creation. And it's not going to just sort of appear overnight. You have to kind of let the materials do their magic and settle in as well. And so so just thinking about your journey with the course as well, I know that you sort of sent me some questions in. You answered some of the questions. So what is there anything specifically that you would like to share about, you know, what was the main thing really the main couple of things that you sort of got out of the course that you couldn't do before? So the question really is, what do you feel that you can do now that you couldn't do before? So just to give people who are watching an idea of what they might be able to get out of the course.
Right. I think one of the most important things that I got out of the course was truly understanding how to blend accords. You know, that you can read about it, but with your course you can kind of go back and you can keep on revising and going over that module, and I still go back to it now. So the fact that the course content, I mean, that was one example of blending accords, is there evergreen. It's always there for you once you're on the course. You can nip back in and you can refresh, and you're always adding extra documents anyway and things like extra resources underneath in the course module. So I think the whole accord thing, and I think the other thing is confidence. You know, because I read about that in theory, and then I went through your modules, and then you get going on it, and you realize, as I said, that you need patience, and you've got to maybe do the 5 beakers with the different amounts in, and then write your notes. But then you have to sort of kind of stand back and then work out how it's going to hang together as a whole fragrance as well. And I think where I really got value out of your course, Karen, was having that cemented and being able to touch base constantly. And then there's your online, you know, your Facebook group as well. And the two really mesh together incredibly, because, you know, you've had a disaster with an accord, you're still fathoming it out. You go onto the Facebook group, pop it up, you and others at different stages, you know, because we're all at different stages. Some have got brands out there and doing very well, and others are, you know, total newbies and sort of still sniffing the materials and learning materials. Somebody always pops up, if not 2, 3 or 4 people pop up with ways and approaches. And so you've got this entire learning environment. You know, it's not just the online course and you're left floundering. You've got this constant support and backup. And, you know, no question is too silly to ask, too beginner. Or, you know, I've seen even people with their brands out there asking questions, think, oh, I'm surprised they asked that, you know, because they seem so clever. And nobody feels embarrassed asking anything. I think this whole learning community has been invaluable, and I've seen people give of their time. I mean, you're always there, you know, propping us up, supporting us, and also reminding us, you know, what was in the course. You know, do go back and check module, whatever.
Yeah, so that is one of the keys, and I'm so glad that you said that, Liz, because that's one of the things that I think people forget. You know, you think, okay, right, well, I've got this six module course, and I'm going to watch all the videos and I'm going to go through it. And I know, like, I've bought courses before and done the same thing. So, like, you know, I'm just as guilty as the next person. But you kind of go through it, and actually it's a lot of content, you know, it is. And, you know, life gets in the way and you forget things. And so that's one of the reasons why I give lifetime access to the modules, because I know that there's so much in there that you do need to go back over it. And the Facebook group, and I've had quite a few people I know that have joined the course. I know we've got quite a big group in there, but there are quite a lot of people who've joined the course but have never joined the Facebook group. And I believe that is one of the main, I mean, the course, you know, I stand behind my content and I'm really happy with the modules, and as you say, I'm updating them all the time. But actually that Facebook group is, like, for me, where it all happens. That's the place that I can support people the easiest. And so I'm always trying to encourage people who haven't joined it, like, come into the group, because of course we've got the Q&As every time we do a live round. I mean, you joined, we weren't in a live round when you joined, were we? We were on an evergreen.
No, you weren't on the live. You'd started, I think, a live in the summer. So I joined when there was but I had access to those live videos, you know, so I went from the Facebook group. That
and
is.
I think, well, we're doing monthly Q&As.
You were doing the Q&As. I forgot to mention that, actually. The Q&As are absolutely brilliant, Karen, because, you know, I'm not always in sync with where you are with those. But, you know, I've always got a question to ask relating to that module from the past that I've forgotten, as you said. And you can always throw in other ones. There's always extraneous questions at the end that people happen to be, and you 5 or 10 minutes just answering whatever it is. You know? So I think the Q&As, you know, whenever you join, and whatever stage you find you're at, we've got, you know, I know there are people who've got their brands out there who still hop on your Q&As, because there's always a gem or two that I hadn't thought of that relates to what I happen to be having a problem with or challenge with at the time. I go, wow, that was really useful.
Yeah.
So you pick up so much from disparate places. It's not just you alone plowing through the modules. And I think that whole ecosystem that you've created has been invaluable. And because I'm sitting here alone, there's nobody around me here I know doing perfumery. I can't touch base with anybody. I can't really chat about it. And if I do, they'll think I'm sort of techie, nerdy perfumer. And, what's the point?
It's same for me as well, actually. Like I'm most often like talking to my computer by myself, like teaching you guys. And I love those, the Facebook group is just, I love it. I did a webinar last night actually, and I hadn't done one for 2 years. And it's just, although it's just me talking at a screen and people are seeing slides, having that interaction with people, I think is so valuable. And in the group, because I'm doing the sort of, Facebook Live, and it would be great if Facebook Lives could add sort of video Q&As to people. I mean, who knows whether we'll have that functionality. But yeah, it does for me as well. I love that interaction with the group, and it's great fun. I mean, it helps me up my game as well, because, people have always got questions that I might not even have thought of myself, actually. So I'm learning from you guys with what you need help with. So yeah, I would definitely encourage anyone who is joining the course to be in the Facebook group, because you're going to get 100 times more out of the course, with people like you guys. And I love to see, what I've really loved actually this year is almost to see that people who have come sort of through the course maybe like a year ago, and then some newbies who have hopped on, who've really taken the bull by the horns and just launched their things. And I'm following you all on Instagram, Facebook, and just,
it's very motivating. You if you've been in there, I've been there a year and a half now. And as you said, you see other people whip through, you go, there's this sort of like gasp, like, well, panic.
I should have got myself together.
I didn't. But then it's very motivating. And everybody in there really gives it the time. I mean, I've been asking recently, for instance, about packaging. Packaging questions, because if I do want to launch at the end of the year, you can never start too early on that, because designers are incredibly slow, and there's a whole lot of legal stuff that has to go on. So you've really got to know a few ins and outs if you are. And I do kind of need boxes, because I do want to get them into retail environments.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot I don't know about the packaging, and people chip in with enormous amount of help and detail.
Yeah, because people have been there already, and exactly, and that's what I have always said about the group. It's not just me teaching people; it's the community who've been there, done that. I mean, I was blown away the other day actually. I know you're in Malta. And I've had people join. I mean, we've got a new round starting, so we've had people. I think I've only got one person from the UK so far who's joined the course, UK, Ireland, but we've got people from Canada, Australia, New Zealand. We've got quite a few people from Sweden. We've got various parts of Eastern Europe. We've got Asia. It's a real national, multicultural group, and the valuable thing in that is everybody, I can't be everywhere. I don't know necessarily the suppliers for things in little, bits of the world, but everybody's doing their own research and adding to that pool as well, which exactly. I really love.
Yeah, it becomes a real, body of knowledge, really, doesn't it? A huge knowledge base, because you can also search the group as well. So I like knowing that at the touch of a button there is, instant support depending on time zones.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I love about. I mean, not everybody. Facebook's got its fans and its kind of and its issues, and not everybody wants to join Facebook. But actually, I have had a few people in the course that don't use Facebook at all, but have just opened a private profile that they don't use for anything else, and then they just use that to interact in the group. And people can do that as well. So it's a really, really handy place. So it's really good to hear your feedback on that, Liz. And so I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to add about where you're going with your brand? So I know actually before you share, I want to just say, and this is just for people watching, that what you've done is what I would advise people to do. So, okay, yes, you haven't launched your brand yet, but you have been blogging, haven't you? And you have been putting your social media out there. So I would always suggest that people, even if you haven't got a product ready, and I did say this in the business bootcamp that I ran recently, like start that email list, start blogging, get your social media. And I have been watching you do that for the last sort of year or so.
I think, it might not come naturally. It comes naturally to me, so it's easy because, my day job is really providing content for people and blogging for other corporate entities as well. So it's not that I always get time to do my own, but I think the process of blogging, however new you are to perfumery, you can actually just chart your own new journey going into it. You don't have to be this, polished brand out there, an amazing, perfect expert, perfume expert to start, talking about things, because you'll pick up followers, and also I find if you have to write it down and explain it in a blog post, you're learning it yourself. You're embedding it in knowledge, because when you're writing a blog post, you have to go and research something and double check something. And so actually it's a process of learning doing it. So if you have got aspirations to be a brand, I think it's a good start, but I'm a fan blogger, so.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that's your background anyway, and I know other people do kind of struggle with it because it's not necessarily their sort of background. I mean, your journalism background does help with that. I just think that, like, sometimes we think that we have to have like everything, and this is what I see with a lot of people coming into the course, or people learning perfumery. They feel like they have to have everything ready and perfect before they can start talking about it, before they can put it out there in the world. And I'm here to say that you absolutely do not have to do that. And I think seeing other people out there, so yourself, for example, and some of the other students that I'm going to be talking to on these lives, they have done that as well. So, we're going to be talking to Katrina, and there's Jennifer I'm going to be talking to as well. And, they've already been putting stuff out there. So, no, I would just encourage anyone watching to just don't feel like you've got to have all your ducks in a row. Get going with it and start writing if you haven't got anything ready yet.
In fact, that was one of the gems that I picked up on the webinar that you did do last night that I beamed into. When this precise issue about get out there and get a sense for it, because if you are in the sort of artisan niche sector of perfumery, you've got the leeway, as you said last night, and I hadn't thought about it like that before, to experiment. So as long as you're not printing 1,000 boxes with a one perfume name on and then nobody likes it and you're stuck
exactly, yeah,
using other means of packaging them, or you've got a generic box and you stick a label on it, per perfume, you can trial. And if something doesn't resonate, you've got the leeway to say, okay, I'm going to ditch that one. It was a limited edition, whatever you want to call it, and start again. And you don't need to feel embarrassed because it was just that limited edition. You only did 100 or 50
exactly.
or
20. I'm glad you picked that up, because that's something that, this is something, again, I talked about in the business bootcamp, and people have this thought that, we have these minimum like order requirements of how many, like a pallet worth of bottles and this many boxes. And yes, if you want to get it perfect and, have all your ducks in a row, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and you're going to have a whole warehouse full of stuff that if it doesn't work out, you're going to lose. And so my advice is always keep it small, launch one product or a trio or whatever fits in with your brand ethos, put it out there as a limited run and test it. And then, it doesn't matter if your packaging is not perfect. Having a lean kind of startup really, and just like really not having, I think it's great when brands have a lot of investment and funding. I think that's quite dangerous because they can overspend on the wrong things before they really know their customer. And so keeping it small, I think it's actually to your advantage, really.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things that you kind of learn doing your course, really, because as you said at the beginning, you see perfumery as this impenetrable industry that is owned by the big guys and the glossy, glitzy, duty-free bottles that you pass when you're flying around. And you think, well, who am I to do this? Yeah. And then you go on places like Instagram and you go, oh, but there are indeed, there are artisan perfumes. They seem to be doing something. They're doing something. And then you get more motivated and you realize that with limited... I did buy quite a lot of bottles, mainly because getting them to an island, the shipping was
I think where you are, you have to
otherwise I wouldn't have done, I would have bought 50, 100 or something, a smaller amount, but they're standard and they're quite standard bottles, so they will fit whatever I want to do. You can just change the color scheme on a label or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are ways and means of adapting it to get your artisan business out there quicker. And I think that's what I picked up, as I said last night. And because there are inevitably dips and troughs. You go through a period of that, I haven't managed to get around to making anything or doing anything for about a month, and you forget stuff. So you go back into your course, pick up the knowledge you need again and get stuck on. I would advise people to get stuck in hands-on as soon as possible, right from the early modules when you're, learning your materials, your raw materials. Buy those few standard oils in the small minimum amounts, so you just get to what they actually do smell like, because the rosemary is not going to smell like the rosemary growing in my garden. In fact, I had some friends over the other day and they were sniffing some of the oils and they go, "Oh, is that basil?" And they said, "Oh, I thought it was licorice." Because the basil oil doesn't smell like the basil that you rip up and stick on your pizza, so you just start getting your hands dirty straight on. And I'm very much a booky, wordy person, so I do have a propensity to sort of sit and watch and read and do all the theory stuff.
So a lot of people who join my courses are like that as well. And I've had actually a few people, thank you so much for sharing that, Liz, because I have had quite a few people recently saying, "Oh, I've done they've gone through the videos, they've gone through everything, but they're too scared to actually get started."
Yeah.
And what I would love to encourage people to do is really get started from day one, even if it's just, smelling 3 oils or, blending one accord with like a few materials that they've got in their cupboard already. Actually that hands-on, roll up your sleeves and get blending.
Yeah. It's only that way that you start building confidence and you begin to envisage yourself down the line, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever it is. Certainly it could be easily done within that time. As a perfumer, you begin to get that confidence. If you're just sort of sitting them like little bottles in front of you and you're just dipping a little bit, but not actually think, well, I'm just going to mix a bit, see what happens. Just 2 compatible things, 2 herbs, herb oils like you've got growing in your garden, and just see how different they are from the plants that as kitchen herbs. I think getting hands-on is probably my biggest tip really when you get started on the course. Because it can be quite scary. I mean, even now I get my doubts, but I've got 1,000 bottles sitting behind me, so I've got my husband saying, "You cannot afford to fail now." And then later on, I think the next tip would be, when you scale up a little bit and you've got beyond buying the standard oils that you can get off the shelf in a sort of Holland and Barrett, Whole Foods type store, and you get to slightly more unusual oils that you're not familiar with, the Labdon and those sort of opopanax, those sort of things that you don't really find in your kitchen repertoire. And you get to that stage and you're spending a little bit more money, then you get to that tipping point and think, well, is this just a vanity hobby, or do I want to do it as a business? And I think you probably do need to step back and think what you want to do. And it's perfectly fine if you just want to mix up for your friends and family and do it, low-key like that. But once you get spending money on bottles and packaging, then you really do need to think about, the business side of it.
And how you're going to recoup that and get a little bit of return on your investment. Absolutely.
Yeah, business plan.
Yeah.
Which I haven't done yet, actually. I'm just, haven't done that, but I need to do that. That is my next month's, to-do list.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Liz. It's been so lovely to see your sort of like journey and all of the insights that you've added as well. And you've added so much to the group, even, with your questions. And I think that's something that I just want to say, that people who are, if some of you, like, there will be people watching this who are already in the course and maybe they've been a bit too shy to kind of post a question. Like, please don't, because actually in adding your questions into the group, it helps other people as well. So yeah, thank you for your interaction with that. And
my pleasure.
And thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk to me today. And hopefully it's given people out there a little bit of inspiration in feeling like they can do it too, and it's not just going to be this sort of far off dream that, they'll never get to. And, looking at your timeline, it hasn't been that long. Okay, you haven't launched yet, but you're quite far along with your plan, aren't you? So what was it, 2016?
Yeah, I started your online, which is when I knew I wanted to do it more seriously, and I knew I wanted to get a product. It was December 17. So it's about a year and year and a half coming up to, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
and of course you've been juggling your own business as well and your workload.
Day job, yeah.
Day job. So I think, people always think, oh, how long is it going to take me? And it can be as long or as short as you want, depending on the time that you've got to really dedicate to it. But But yeah, I'm really looking forward to smelling your fragrances when they come out. So do send me some, let
I
me
know,
know.
you'll be my first tester.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, I'd like send me your if you want me to be a guinea pig for sure. Um, and I will put the link to your Instagram, social media, what have you. So if people are watching and they want to go follow Liz and follow her journey of her product launch, I will put the link below this video. And yeah, thank you so much, as I said, Liz. And yeah, we'll be doing this as hopefully a little bit of a regular thing and showcasing some of past students' brands and doing some interviews. So thank you all for watching. And yeah, I'll speak to you all very, very soon.